Welcome to RankLens. Today we count down the top 10 largest empires by territory at their peak. What was the largest empire the world has ever seen? Was it defined by military conquest, strategic trade, or sheer political ambition? Throughout history, empires have risen and fallen, some spanning continents, others ruling entire seas. Today, we're counting down the 10 largest empires by territory at their absolute peak. We're talking millions of square kilometers under a single rule. These empires shaped continents, reshaped cultures, and left legacies that echo to this day. Ready to discover which domain truly commanded the world stage? Let's dive in, starting at number 10 and building all the way to the top. At number 10, the Portuguese Empire, sprawling across 10.4 million square kilometers. Portugal's wasn't the largest, but it was the first European colonial empire, and it endured for roughly 6 centuries. These weren't just lucky explorers. Portuguese navigators actively opened the first sea routes from Europe to Asia and Africa, revolutionizing global trade and connecting continents that had never directly traded before. And here's the geopolitical bombshell, the 1494 Treaty of Tordesillas. Spain and Portugal literally divided the New World between them on paper, a pact that reshaped colonial history. Portugal controlled vast territories across 4 continents: Brazil in the Americas, Angola and Mozambique in Africa, Goa in India, and Macau in Asia. For an empire built on ocean routes rather than land conquest, 600 years of dominance is extraordinary. Coming in at number 9, the Yuan Dynasty, claiming 11.0 million square kilometers. This empire was founded by Kublai Khan in 1271, the grandson of Genghis Khan, bringing Mongol power into China itself. And here's what made it historically radical. It was the first time all of China was unified under foreign rule. The Han Chinese had always resisted outside dominion, but the Yuan Dynasty broke that pattern entirely. Trade flourished under Yuan rule, so much so that the Venetian explorer Marco Polo reportedly served at Kublai Khan's court, one of the few documented Western travelers to do so. His presence there tells you something about how cosmopolitan and open the Yuan had become. The dynasty only lasted about a century before internal instability led to its collapse, but during its reign, it commanded vast swaths of Eurasia and reshaped the cultural map of East Asia forever. At number 8, the Umayyad Caliphate, stretching across 11.1 million square kilometers. This empire was vast in a way few people today appreciate. It spanned from Iberia in the west, modern-day Spain, all the way to Central Asia. The Umayyad realm was the first major Muslim dynasty, ruling from 661 to 750 CE, and it did something unprecedented. It unified the Islamic world under a single banner during its formative centuries. The capital was Damascus in modern Syria, a city that became a center of power and learning. The speed of Umayyad expansion was stunning. Within a few decades of the Prophet Muhammad's death, they'd conquered 3 continents. But rapid expansion often breeds instability, and by 750 CE, internal fractures and rebellion had fractured the caliphate into smaller regional powers. Still, during its 90-year reign, the Umayyad left an indelible mark on Islamic civilization and the cultures it touched. Number 7 brings us the Abbasid Caliphate, also at 11.1 million square kilometers, essentially the same land area as the Umayyad, but a completely different era and story. The Abbasid dynasty conquered the Umayyad and ruled from 750 to 158 CE. Its capital, Baghdad, was among the largest and wealthiest cities in the entire medieval world, a jewel of Islamic civilization. This era is known as the Islamic Golden Age, a period of extraordinary scientific, mathematical, and cultural advancement. Scholars at the House of Wisdom in Baghdad preserved and expanded upon Greek, Persian, and Indian knowledge. They invented algebra, advanced medicine, and mapped the stars. But empires, no matter how brilliant, face their reckoning. In 1258, Mongol forces sacked Baghdad, a catastrophic event that shattered the caliphate's political power and marked the symbolic end of the Islamic Golden Age. Yet the Abbasids' intellectual legacy outlived its territorial reign. At number 6, the French Colonial Empire, stretching across 13.5 million square kilometers. France's colonial reach was massive, but here's the twist. They reached their peak extent after World War I, largely through League of Nations mandates granted by the international community. Unlike older empires built on conquest alone, France inherited control of former Ottoman and German territories as a mandate, a new form of imperial management that technically had oversight rules. French territories spanned the globe: North Africa and West Africa, Indochina in Southeast Asia, the Caribbean and other parts of the Americas, and scattered islands across the Pacific. It made France the second largest colonial empire in history, trailing only one other power. That dominance, however, came late and lasted only decades before decolonization swept the world in the mid-20th century. But during those peak years between 1920 and World War II, French colonial power shaped continents. Number 5 is the Spanish Empire, claiming 13.7 million square kilometers. Spain accomplished something extraordinary. It built the first truly global empire, spanning 4 continents simultaneously: Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Americas. In the 6th century, Spain was the undisputed colonial superpower, a dominance that lasted for generations. The empire stretched from Mexico all the way to the Philippines, an almost unimaginable span of control for a single European nation. At its height, Spanish silver from the Americas flooded European markets, funding wars, art, and architecture back home. But managing an empire across oceans and continents proved unsustainable. Wars, naval defeats, and the rise of rival powers gradually eroded Spanish dominance. By the 18th century, Spain's territorial reach shrank, and by the early 20th century, its colonial holdings had largely evaporated. Still, for a 2-century window, Spain commanded more of Earth's surface than almost any power before or since. Coming in at number 4, the Qing Dynasty, sprawling across 14.7 million square kilometers. The Qing was China's last imperial dynasty, ruling from 1644 until 1912, when the modern Chinese Republic was established. But here's what makes the Qing especially significant. It was founded by the Manchu people, not the Han Chinese majority. For the first time, a non-Han people ruled the Chinese Empire and integrated themselves into Chinese civilization so thoroughly that their reign is often studied as part of Han history. At its 18th century peak, the Qing governed the world's most populous empire, hundreds of millions of subjects under the Dragon Throne. The dynasty achieved unprecedented territorial expansion, absorbing Tibet, Xinjiang, and Mongolia into a unified realm. But all empires face decline. Internal strife, foreign pressure, and modernization challenges gradually weakened Qing power. By the early 20th century, the once mighty Qing crumbled, ending 2,000 years of Chinese imperial rule. At number 3, the Russian Empire, dominating 22.8 million square kilometers. This empire was breathtakingly vast. At its height, it spanned 11 time zones across Eurasia, from the Baltic Sea in the west to the Pacific Ocean in the east. The sheer logistics of governing such a sprawl were mind-bending. Travel from the capital took weeks by horse or carriage. Russia grew through relentless eastward expansion over centuries, absorbing Siberia, the Caucasus, Central Asian Khanates, and even Alaska. Yes, Alaska, the Russians colonized it. But in 1867, cash-strapped after the Crimean War, they sold the territory to the United States for $720 million. It was a strategic blunder few realized at the time. Today, Russia is the direct territorial heir of this vast imperial landmass. the largest country by area still exists where the Russian Empire once ruled. That continuity makes Russian imperial history uniquely linked to modern geopolitics. Number 2. The Mongol Empire, stretching across 24.0 million square kilometers. This is the largest contiguous land empire ever assembled in human history. And contiguous is the key word, one unbroken stretch of territory, not scattered colonies across oceans. The architect of this staggering dominion was Genghis Khan, who in 1206 unified the warring Mongol tribes and launched one of history's most relentless conquest campaigns. His descendants expanded the empire in all directions. The Mongol realm stretched in one unbroken sweep from the Pacific Ocean to Eastern Europe, from the Arctic to Southeast Asia. What made Mongol rule so successful was unexpected tolerance. They often left conquered people's religions and customs intact, demanding only tribute and loyalty. Trade flourished on the Silk Roads under Mongol peace. But empires built on military genius don't outlast their creators. After Genghis Khan and his immediate successors, the Mongol Empire fragmented into regional khanates. Still, for a few dazzling decades, the Mongol Empire represented the apex of territorial dominion. And finally, number 1, the British Empire, claiming an astounding 35.5 million square kilometers at its 1920 peak. At that moment, the British Empire covered roughly 1/4 of Earth's entire land area, a claim that seems almost impossible until you see the maps. British territories existed on every continent and in every major ocean. The empire's reach was so vast that there was literally always daylight somewhere under the Union Jack, inspiring the famous saying, "The sun never sets on the British Empire." How did a small island nation achieve this? Naval dominance, industrial revolution advantage, and centuries of strategic colony building created a global network of territories, dominions, and protectorates. India alone, the crown jewel, represented the bulk of Britain's population and wealth. But the sun, as they say, eventually sets on all empires. After World War II, decolonization swept the world, and Britain's vast domain dissolved in mere decades. Yet the footprint remains. English language, legal systems, and institutions inherited from British rule still shape the modern world. What does ranking history's largest empires tell us? First, that empire building, whether through conquest or colonization, follows patterns, rapid expansion, administrative challenges, and eventual decline. Second, that size alone doesn't equal durability. The Mongol Empire was massive but fragile. The Portuguese Empire was smaller but lasted centuries. Third, that geography matters. Land empires like the Mongol and Russian relied on contiguous territories, while naval powers like Britain and Spain scattered colonies across oceans, creating vulnerabilities. Finally, these empires left legacies, languages, borders, religions, and institutions that still structure our world today. Understanding why they rose and fell offers insight into how power itself works. The age of classical empires has passed, but its echo remains unmistakable. And that's the top 10 largest empires by territory at their peak. If you enjoyed this countdown, subscribe to RankLens for more.